Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Sorry, these guys were making fun of my intro before I started, so I'm going to start again. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Find Out podcast.
It's so tasty.
I'm Tim Fullerton, and I'm with four jokers who I don't. We're gonna try to get through this one today. We're already falling apart. It's good that we're laughing now because we're going to be talking about some very, very serious topics today. One will obviously be the pending catastrophe in Iran. And what that looks like in the MAGA world, because they're starting to split a little bit. But I think at first we want to talk about some breaking news that happened here in New York City yesterday, where New York City comptroller and mayoral candidate Brad Lander, who actually used to be my city council member as well, was detained by ICE. You've probably all seen the video by now, as he was accompanying an immigrant to a hearing and asked for basically, I think, some proof of why they were detaining this individual, and they decided to detain him as well. So let's start with this sort of troubling trend of Democrats seeming to be arrested by the Trump administration. I think we're up to 5 elected officials at this point somewhere that have at least been detained, if not arrested and charged. What do we think, guys? Is this a good move on Democrats' part? Is this performative? What do we think? Who wants to go first?
I think it's ready. I'm ready to just do the abolish ICE thing.
Yeah,
I'm not prone to like a boycott everything and ban everything, because like you just create a mess usually. But when I started thinking of it in the context of the attacks that all of these Trump administration and Trump departments didn't prevent over the past several months, while they were chasing farm workers and construction workers and daycare workers and arresting judges in Wisconsin and dragging Senator Padilla to the ground in California, that's when it was like, okay, I had to start unpacking, like, why is ICE here? What is the Department of Homeland Security protecting us from, if not masked armed white men with fucking assault rifles? Like, let's just be real about this. Like, this is the homeland, right? And it's not the people in the Home Depot parking lot attacking me right now, or threatening rallies, threatening protests. So I tend to be pretty moderate on these things, but man, on this one, I've just got my hair on fire.
No, I'm with you. I mean, like, it's one of those things too, where like, that's
the last thing Luke's going to say on this episode.
Yep, that's it. That's my whole opinion.
Like,
Melt the ice.
I look at it as, like, when I zoom out and look at it, I go, okay, well, this is just Trump using the system wrong again. Like, ICE has its place in my mind, and it should be very specific of violent criminal immigrant offenders. That's all they should be focused on. If that was the sole purpose of the department, I think the entire country would go, cool, sounds great. But when you give them masks and say, hey, these are anonymous men who are just going to fucking disappear people, it kind of just, you're using the system wrong. Like, it's, Tim and I were having a discussion a couple weeks ago about this topic, and like, you asked a question that I think is a really important question here, is like, what problem is this solving? Right. And like, if there was a clear answer, I'd be all about it. I'd be like, sure, ICE, go ahead and clear out the criminals. I think nobody's going to fight that. But outside of that, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Like, what's the purpose of what they're doing? And there's not a good answer for it in my mind.
So a friend of mine who I met over TikTok, she goes by Note Brigade. She is I believe, a doctoral student who is studying the far right. And the way that she approaches studying the far right is a little unconventional in what people typically think of as like sociology of the study of people, because these people are inherently dangerous. Their ideas are objectively dangerous. It is not like studying a certain ethnicity or a certain minority group. It is studying people who may want to cause harm to or kill the researcher. And she posted a video that I found extremely compelling, where she was crying, where she was talking about how disturbed that she was over, ICE arresting a mayoral candidate and the comptroller in New York, because with her knowledge of the far right and specifically of these militia movements, what she saw was indistinguishable from what was the conspiracy to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. Like people who are dressed in relatively plain clothes, who are not using badges, who have no name tapes, who just got that kind of like vet bro tactical look and guns. And they're coming in and just saying, we're going to arrest you without a warrant, without identifying ourselves, and without a badge. That is profoundly dangerous. And I hope that ICE agents have it in their mind that some people are not going to respond favorably to that. I mean, I carry I have a license for a concealed carry permit. If a bunch of men jumped out of a van, I will tell you that I would not respond very well to a bunch of masked men with guns trying to grab me. And it would not go well for anybody. I'm not saying that I would survive, but the costs would be tremendous. And that is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and this is why police departments around the country are for stronger gun laws. And they absolutely despise open carry in their states, because generally what happens at a mass shooter event, and I worked at Every Town for Gun Safety. This is why I'm talking like I've said this before, but they hate good guys with guns in these things, because then they don't know who to target, and it takes longer. It potentially friendly fire, and it's bad. And it's the same thing with ICE. And I'm sorry, I don't think there should be any law enforcement in the United States that is allowed to grab you without identifying themselves and showing proof that they are law enforcement. That seems like that should be a bare minimum. Now, like I said, I know Brad Lander a little bit. He was my city council member before he ran for comptroller, and now running for mayor. He is a good guy. I would actually say he is probably a better guy than a politician. And what he was doing yesterday was something he had done in the past. So this is not performative. He is an attorney, and he was accompanying an immigrant, and he asked a question. And the sheer audacity of an citywide elected official to ask a masked, unnamed, unidentified person what they were doing, it got him thrown to the ground. And I think that, I give him a lot of credit for putting his body in harm's way. It's wild to say that about law enforcement in this country. And I'd say the same for Alex Padilla. And frankly, it is not ideal, but I think more Democratic politicians need to do this, because I think this is how you get people to pay attention to what ICE is doing and caring. Because let's be honest, a lot of Americans do not care what ICE does to people who don't look like them. Mm-hmm. But if they start tackling people who look like them, they're going to have a serious problem with this.
I totally agree. And unsurprisingly, but even when I look at there's accusations yes, politicians can be performative, liberals can be performative, everybody can be performative, but they are literally elected. This is their job. They are elected to represent people. So if you're going in and you've got a job and you're getting paid, what is it, $175,000 a year or something, and you live in DC and you're relatively protected, relatively insulated, not only is it your job to represent the people who voted you into office, who may have much more, they may be much more vulnerable. They may have much more emotion around it. They may have stronger feelings. You are also in a protected status. Like Alex Padilla is not going to be deported to El Salvador. And if he is, there will be an actual movement that will, I'm trying to be very careful here, but things would happen if an elected leader were deported. So not only are they protected and not only are they doing their job, but to some degree, they are feeling this and personally. And so is it performative? Well, their job is to perform for their constituents. So let's just table that, because I just don't give a shit. This is real. It's a real thing that's happening. And I 100% agree that it is their responsibility. The worst thing is holding those fucking paddles. I will die with nightmare images in my mind of paddles that say this is not normal and Trump lies.
I'm going to show up to your funeral with a paddle that says this is not normal.
It is, but hopefully it will be normal at that point, unless I'm in El Salvador. But you look at how far have we come? Like, just a soft pivot, and then we can go back. But how far have we come since Al Green was like scorned for standing on the floor and being like, "This is bullshit," and everyone was like, "Oh, decorum," and now we're at least embracing the people who are getting their face shoved into the floor by ICE agents, right? Yeah. And so, good for us that we figured out which reaction to this is the right reaction.
No, I think one of the things too that always sticks out for me as to why I sort of like a performance in this space is that I got to zoom out for a second. Like, a lot of the things that we talk about here in this space are we kind of coming close to like Nazism? Like, look at how Hitler came to power versus look at what Trump is doing. And it's like, all right, the one thing that we have in our favor in this case is the fact that we see everything. Social media lets you see every single thing that happens every single second. So in 1930, not really the case. You just read what you see on TV. You don't have any real, actual, understanding what's going on around you and what's in the newspaper and what your friends and neighbors tell you.
They didn't have mind space.
Exactly. So the critical difference is, what do the American people see and how does it feel to have the American government behaving around you, right? So if they're seeing a ton of things that do resemble what you heard about in history with Nazi Germany, that will make it much easier for us to not to fall into Nazi Germany. So I think this is one of those things where, like, I don't care if it's performative. People need to see it so they recognize the actual threat of the moment.
I think that's right. And I think that if you see anything happening, and you feel safe doing it, take out your phone and video it. I mean, I think we have to be. Are you saying?
So I just remembered that on the topic of like us being able to get videos out there and people seeing what's happening, TikTok is scheduled to be banned.
Oh, that's right.
The day that this episode is going live.
No. They just extended it 90 days.
They did?
90
yesterday. Another 90 days
this time. 90 days. Okay. I think it was 75 before.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
God, this is fucking stupid.
I know, it's so dumb. He just put a zero. It's 900 days. What's the difference? It's just
9 million. Why not? Like, what are we even doing? It was clearly a national security threat, by the way, that like they keep extending the deadline.
But we could keep it all around forever.
Yeah.
The thing about it being performative for me is, like, even if it is fucking performative, half the country fell for the biggest performance of all fucking time. So if what it takes is to see, like, these people do some shit out of an action movie and they think, oh, maybe the Democrats aren't all spineless, fucking feckless people, I'm fine with it. I could give a fuck. If they're doing it because they need to, like, prop their little campaign up a little, fuck it. I don't care, because half the country won't know that.
Yep. That's true. And the right does it all the time. Like, why would
and the
we
right
not
does
play
it
the game?
all the time.
I was going to say, you know what's performative is these American mask Skeletor face things, and they're all marching around, and it's like, dude, just stop. Like, you're not that guy. You don't look cool. You nobody wants to be you. Just
Last
stop.
weekend, I went and volunteered right before the protest. I went and volunteered. There's like a Go Outdoors Iowa thing where you teach like underprivileged kids how to do outdoorsy shit. So I went and taught people how to fish. But there was this fucking dude walking around open carrying a handgun on his fucking belt, and he's got a gator mask pulled down, and he's like, yeah, if he pulls his mask up and points his gun at me, I can't tell if that's an ICE agent or not. And I had that thought, and I was like, that's fucking absurd.
Isn't how they fish? That's how they fish in Iowa, though, isn't it?
Dynamite, not guns, silly.
Well, but I think Rich's point earlier about that a politician is performative and that they are representatives. It is literally their job to ask questions, and that is what was happening. So if you want to call that a performance, sure, but it is also in the job description. They are representing people who are scared. And we're not even talking just about migrant communities or people of color. Like, everybody is now getting scared because now you don't know who's running around in your neighborhood if they're ICE agents. There were reports yesterday that there were ICE agents in Greenpoint, which is in Brooklyn, which is relatively close to where I record. And, it's like, okay, now what? Are those active shooters? Are they agents? Like, it is a terrifying thing. And I think as it gets into people's neighborhoods, they're going to hate it.
Well, and I'm looking at the picture of the people who arrested Brad Lander, or cuffed him at least. There's a dude who, like, he's in jeans and a black shirt with one of those like tactical watches that probably has like lasers and shit in it. The super hardcore guys.
A G-Shock.
He there it is. He looks like he could have bought that shirt on Temu. another guy, windbreaker, backward mesh trucker hat with a what looks like it looks like one of those medical masks on that you like. He could have picked that up off the street. Like it's literally a disposable medical mask.
You see that interview that Walter Masterton put out where like he was at some big Republican convention and there's a dickhead walking around in an ice windbreaker.
Yes.
And Walter was like, "Are you actually an ice student?" He's like, "No, the windbreaker was $24 on Amazon. Would recommend sizing down if you're my size though, because it's a little loose for me. I should have bought a size small." And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You're a garbage human."
Well, that's also just dangerous. I mean, first of all, the fact that you would be bragging about what these guys are doing is absurd, right? Yeah. But also, like, you're putting yourself in potentially in harm's way as well by putting that on. Sure. I mean, it's just nutso.
Don't be surprised if somebody whips you a fucking brick at you. Like, you're walking around bragging about what they're doing.
What are the rules of engagement with this? Because like I really don't know. I every time I see ICE agents, I'm like, how is this not illegal? What they're doing? Like there must be some kind of law that forces them to do it. But I imagine because they're part of national security that they can just do whatever the fuck they want. But
I can tell you what the rules of engagement are. In New York State.
I want to hear Chris. I got a couple of questions for Chris on this actually, but go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the most frustrating things for me as a former service member, as a veteran, as a former Boy Scout, was the way that the lessons that were taught during my concealed carry permit. It was an 18-hour class on how to get away with murder.
Oh, great.
It did not teach people how to clean or care for weapons, which are essential in actually using them. Like care for your weapon, especially if you own it and you're wearing it for years, is essential.
If you want it to work, you better take care of it.
Yeah. So we did not learn anything about that. In order to pass the class, you just needed to hit a paper target that's 7 feet away, that is 1 foot wide and 2 feet tall, which is the size of a torso.
Can't hit that.
You have to hit it from 7 feet away. I think something like 3 out of 5 times or 5 out of 7 times. You don't have to load the magazine. You don't have to rack the round. Wow. Nothing. You just pick up a firearm and it may or may not have a safety on it. You shoot it and you may never touch a firearm that looks like that again. So that is what we learned in terms of like actually touching this firearm during this concealed carry permit. The rest of it was off-duty police officers, or an off-duty sheriff's deputy in my case, teaching a class on how to get away with firing your weapon. And it all boils down to this: is would it be justifiable in the eyes of a neutral observer for you to have feared for your life in that moment? And would you be able to retreat? If the answer is yes, you are afraid, and no, you cannot retreat, that means that you must, if you're pulling it out, you must shoot to kill. You cannot pull out a firearm and aim it at someone and say, "Don't come near me, I've got a firearm," because now you've brandished a weapon.
Right.
And now you're going to jail for a very long time in New York. So if you pull your weapon, you must kill the other person, according to the state of New York. That is literally the way that this off-duty sheriff taught the class. And it's consistent with the it was an NRA certified course. It is not just, some random gun shop coming up with its own curriculum. That is what is taught. So going back to the example that we started in, like if a bunch of plainclothed people wearing masks jumped out of an unmarked van and they were running towards me, I would have the legal right to just open up on them and to end all of them. And that is not the way that that ICE ought to be operating, because this is going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, for sure.
Since the Bruin decision, which made it much, much easier to get a concealed carry permit in New York, Massachusetts, and other states where it was historically difficult, there have been tens of thousands, if not more, concealed carry permits issued. There are tons of people in New York carrying firearms, concealed carry, legally today, that we had never had anything like this in New York. And ICE agents are going to run into a business owner, who has a legitimate reason to have a firearm, who is brown, and who they assume is undocumented because he's driving a certain kind of truck. And they are going to lose officers.
Well, and even if you have a person who they think is undocumented, this is what we're seeing with everybody who's getting attacked and arrested and detained and cuffed and slammed into the walls and floors. They're not the people that ICE is even going after.
Yeah.
It's anyone who's in the vicinity who says, are you real? Are you an actual government official, or
Right.
are you masquerading? Are you a militia member who, like, out of solidarity, like out of racist solidarity, wants to be part of this movement? Is this person actually a criminal? Do you know that they're undocumented, or are you suspecting that they're undocumented because you're racially profiling them? And then if all of these things are true, do you actually have a warrant to come into this building or come into this space and
Right.
take this human being? Because they're detaining them, they're putting them on planes, and they're trying to get them out of the country same day so that they can avoid any kind of due process and just not have anybody know about it. Like, we know that that's what they're trying to do. So it really is on all of us to legally, but clearly, use our rights to protect every single human being who's at risk of having their constitutional rights violated.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is what I talk about all the time. Like, people who look like me, people with a veteran background, like white straight males with a beard and tattoos, you know, who look like a vet. Like, we need to weaponize our privilege in every legal way possible to slow down the confidence that these ICE agents have in their inappropriate use of force against citizens and non-citizens.
And the question I had for you, Chris, because it feels like this is one of those calls coming from inside of the house situations. You've told us in the past, like, you signed up. I remember vividly, post 9/11, everyone in the country, I believe I didn't, but everyone in the country got, like, just a little bit racist for a while there. And there was just a sort of general either fear, like a passive fear, or an active rage toward anyone who might have been, you know, part of the Middle East. And you mentioned that back in those days when you were Republican, you joined the military, like, you got in there to go and hurt people who hurt us, you know, and let's not be like, that is a huge motivating factor for a lot of young men. We were all young men at some point, Luke.
Sure. Throw me under the bus.
And you used to be marginally younger. But we know how that felt. Like, you watch the action movies and you just have this, like, crazed fearlessness where you're like, oh man, I could do that. I could go and I'm Rambo, you know? What percent, just not scientific, but like, what percent of these individuals who are putting on these masks and getting locked and loaded are just actually just excited to go and try to hurt Hispanic people? I mean, it's not 0%. Like, some percent of these people they just want to go hurt brown people, right?
I think this month was the 10-year anniversary of Donald Trump coming down that golden escalator, the fake golden escalator. And
it's 2 days ago.
Talking about how, you know, Mexicans are all rapists. So for 10 years, young people have had this kind of rhetoric normalized. And Rich, I think you put this in the accurate context. So I grew up watching, you know, whether it was, any kind of like daytime action movie. After the Cold War ended, the enemy was no longer Russian. They were Middle Eastern terrorists.
100%.
Still that way.
So leading up to 9/11, there was a lot of, you know, entertainment, racist propaganda, you know, depending on your lens, that put these people, put an entire class or multiple classes of people, multiple ethnicities, religions, etc., in the crosshairs of the average American young man who idolized the heroes, the American heroes, in these characters in these movies. The people who are joining ICE today are doing it after 10 years of racist propaganda being normalized. And I think that the average person who's joining ICE today has a desire to enforce Donald Trump's policies. Like, the ICE was notorious before this current administration. Like, ICE has been gaining a reputation for, you know, enacting racist policies, for deporting people. And I think that the average ICE agent is probably, pretty MAGA. Though with that said, it is a federal job. It does come with, at least for now, certain benefits like, union membership and the types of things that are difficult to find in the private sector nowadays. So I'm not saying every ICE agent is racist, but they are people who are at the very least tolerant of being part of that machine.
Well, and ICE was created, in 2003, right? It was when the Department of Homeland Security was created, when, how many, like 80% of the plane hijackers who were Saudi nationals brought the towers down, and then we decided to invade Afghanistan, which, and then were lied into a war into Iraq, which was why I'm doing a bit of a pivot here. Iraq was actually a big stabilizing force against Iran. And then when we toppled Saddam and his regime, it basically made Iraq incredibly weak and basically partitioned into several different provinces. Iran began enriching uranium and starting to become a real power in the Middle East, a lot due to George W. Bush's policies. Great job, guys. Great job, Hawks and Dick Cheney and all those guys, when we were going to be greeted as liberators. But they put us in the position that we're in today, which Donald Trump is weighing whether or not the United States will join Israel in an aerial assault on Iran. There are conflicting reports about who he's listening to. And of course, he's doing what every great leader does, which is tweet out, nobody knows what I'm going to do, which is a great way to give some calm to people. But what we're seeing, interesting, the reason we're talking about Iran is obviously it's in the news that there might be a war. But there's also an internal war going on between MAGA that kind of exploded yesterday between the anti-war faction, of which Donald Trump said he's anti-war and he said no new wars, and the Hawks, who have always been, we were in the first administration and are still in this administration, pushing him to hit. So I'm curious, and I have obviously some thoughts on this too. Like, are we starting to see the first cracks in the MAGA movement?
First, before we talk about Iran, Tim, do you even know how many people live in Iran?
90
That was a good moment.
90 million.
I know more than a United States senator.
Look at us. We're all better qualified.
Tucker Carlson has done so many things I hate him for, but I think the number one is making me agree with him. Like, I was cheering for him in that interview. I fucking hate that.
So what they're referring to is, and why it blew up yesterday, is that Tucker Carlson interviewed the most hated senator of all time, Ted Cruz, Rafael Cruz from Canada. Tucker is very anti-war, and Cruz has gone all the way to just like doing whatever Donald Trump asks him, including making phone calls in favor of his campaign at the end of 2016, which was hilarious. But he didn't know any basic questions about Iran, but he was all about bombing them. Yep. And it was interesting to watch these two who agree probably on 90%, 95% of issues, like fighting. Like act like it was like it was almost like one was a Democrat and one was a Republican.
Ted was losing his shit on him.
Yeah, they were pissed off at each other.
I mean, I don't think.
Can they both lose? Is my question.
Well, I think like
we're gonna find a way.
The Republican Party, and I hesitate to call it MAGA because it's sort of like MAGA and then like the old school Republicans that vote along with them. They're like a toxic family. They're going to fight about this shit, but it's not going to like make people, like some people here and there, like little people scatter off. This is not going to do anything in terms of like destabilizing the strength of Donald Trump's coalition. Like, most MAGA folks will just agree with whatever the fuck Trump says, and he'll spin a narrative to make what he did make sense and twist the truth and fix all the PR shit that he pulls. I don't think it's going to do anything. I think but at the same time, Trump is in a position right now, in my perspective, he has two loser options. Whether he decides to join Israel or not, he's going to be looked at like the loser in the situation. If he doesn't go with them, he kind of looks like a guy who can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag because he just couldn't get him to the table. Right. And then if he goes with them, he's a guy that is essentially breaking all of his promises and getting us into another potentially forever war, which the average American doesn't want this war. Like they don't want to relive Iraq. It's not popular. So he has two very unpopular choices to make. So I think the reason he's stalling is like, I don't know which way to go. They're both shitty, you know?
So I disagree about MAGA being unsplittable. I think that this is the one exception.
Yeah.
The reason being is that Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon still play a tremendous role in shaping the worldview of MAGA and of the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. They are, Steve Bannon lost to Elon Musk. Like Steve Bannon did not want Elon Musk in the party, but Elon Musk came with the billions of dollars and all the gravitas, right? So Steve Bannon lost that battle. There's not a way that Steve Bannon is going to lose the battle to the anti-interventionist narrative that he has been pushing for as long as he's been, since he was editor for Breitbart. The way that Tucker Carlson embarrassed Ted Cruz, that emasculation really, really, really fucking resonates. Like we all enjoyed it because we hate Ted Cruz.
Fucking right, I did.
But that emasculation of Ted Cruz emasculated the pro-war movement, pro-war idea. So I do not think that that Donald Trump will engage in Iran. I mean, he's, as he says, no one knows what he's going to do.
Right.
But I think that Donald Trump is aware that his top propagandists would not be with him on this. Now, what I think is most concerning to me is that I know that Hegseth and those around him in the Department of Defense absolutely do want to go to Iran.
Oh, they want it badly.
And I suspect, I mean, JD Vance has this kind of like neo-reactionary, which is kind of anti-intervention. So I don't know exactly how JD Vance would go on this, but Pete Hegseth pushed out all of the anti-Iran war voices that he was closest to. People that I know and have been fighting against for years. One of them is Dan Caldwell. This is a guy who used to work for Concerned Veterans for America. We were polar opposite on issues related to veterans. But he has always been, and he was the only one, a guy who I respected, who always taught me and my he interacted with me and my colleagues very respectfully and continues to more than 10 years later. He and his colleagues getting kicked out was the most concerning thing that I've seen related to the Pentagon so far. This is the most profoundly dangerous for our national security and for global stability.
Well, and the other thing that came out this morning in Politico, I don't know if folks saw it, is that Trump has basically pushed Tulsi Gabbard, who is the director of national intelligence, off to the edges.
What a surprise.
She put out some video.
They're so qualified, though.
I guess the half-life on his cabinet's a little longer this time around.
Yeah, but I think the point with her is that she is anti-war and she's also very pro Vladimir Putin, who is very pro Iran. So that it is concerning to me that he has pushed her off to the side. The other thing I think what we're witnessing, which is where I've got to agree with both of you if it's possible, is that I think some of what Tucker and Bannon are doing is also looking past Donald Trump because he's done.
Yeah,
and they are looking to have their candidates in 2026 and in 2028 lead the Republican Party. And so I think it's not quite necessarily like they're going to go after Trump for whatever. Right. I think it's the leverage and trying to continue to build their movement post him.
I think there's also like the potential for like Trump to thread the needle on this, right? Because I think that the issue that a lot of the folks that on MAGA that are pissed off about potentially going to war here, is they don't want a nation build. They don't want to get involved in like that horrible shit that we tried to do and like restructuring governments, killing leaders. I mean, you saw it a couple days ago where like Trump told Israel, do not kill their supreme leader. Like, don't do that because that's not the place he wants to go. If Trump comes out and goes, look, I'll use the U.S. military infrastructure to specifically bunker bust nuclear sites, and that's it. I won't do any nation building. I won't put boots on the ground. I think he threads the needle on this one, and I think it makes him look good. I don't think he'll back off. I really don't. I do think he's actually going to press and realize, like, I can thread this needle. I can look like I'm not a war hawk. I'm just attacking a dangerous nuclear infrastructure, but I'm not going to go any further than that. And I think he threads the needle on it. But it's a risky move for him, though.
I think that Democrats politically just need to be careful with how we walk this one, because the whole, like, he's gonna start World War III, like, don't make that our position, because all he has to do is nothing, and then he wins, because he lets Netanyahu do it whatever he wants. He says, look, I'm the president of peace. I didn't get us involved in this. And he also successfully distracts us from all of the actual bad things that are happening domestically that were going very, very, very poorly for him.
Yeah.
Just like we saw with the Musk blow up and then getting into the protests and the National Guard. Everything was going poorly with this past weekend. His birthday party was a flop, but nobody even showed up. The cake was shitty. And lo and behold, 3 days later, he's, being coy and sort of adorable about where the supreme leader might be hiding, and he's posting it on social media. It's like, so I think, politically, I
can't
agree
believe you just used the words sort of adorable.
It was, I mean, the fact that the guy is I have to go there, because the fact that the dude is posting on social media that he knows where the enemy is. I'm like, that they have the internet there, right? Like,
every time I hear the words, Donald Trump truthed this, I want to fucking lose my mind. I think I've come to the conclusion that any candidate going forward, it would be a pro in my book if they said, I don't use any social media. Like, I will not communicate to you that way.
They just have a flip phone, or not even a flip phone, one of those bricks, the Nokia, what is it?
I want to see you on TV giving actual speeches. Other than that, I don't want to hear you.
I mean, I think there's a lane for a sane person to use digital tools correctly to reach audiences. He is not one of those people. I am going to push back a little bit on him being able to thread the needle because of something he actually truths. So maybe I'm backing up what Luke says a little bit.
Can you just call it tweet? Just call it tweet. I want you to dead name Twitter at every opportunity.
I'm not calling it X. All that shitty right wing stuff is just going to be.
But truth is just MAGA Twitter. So it's all Twitter.
So but he actually tweeted that he was requiring the Ayatollah to have unconditional surrender. If he's out there saying unconditional surrender and then he drops a bomb on one place, like, that's not really a victory. If he's like saying, I mean, I know, look, he's slippery and he
says 1,000 things. But that's his thing.
I just don't know if Americans are going to be happy with the idea. We haven't bombed Iran ever. And so it just, people are just so tired of war, right? We had 20 years. We didn't take care of the veterans that came back. It was just, we didn't solve anything. No one has any appetite for this shit.
It's a little different though. Because it's not like Iraq where it was a guess and there were no weapons of mass destruction. Like, they're openly, enriching uranium for the goal of having a nuclear weapon. And I think zooming out away from the fact that Donald Trump is president, whatever, this is a consequential decision for him, that's a bad thing. Like, undeniably, Iran having a nuclear weapon is a terrible thing. Right. They are unquestionably the most likely to use a nuclear weapon outside of maybe North Korea and obviously they would use it on Israel, which is why Israel's doing what they're doing right now. I don't necessarily agree with the structure in which they're doing all this shit, but if you just erase all the politics from this, Iran having a nuke is a very bad thing. So
if only there was some kind of a deal that would have stopped this.
Right. So but that's the thing. It's like, if you like on our last episode, I made the whole, you can go all the way back to Trump, ruining that situation. But Trump bunker busting the shit out of that program is essentially him doing the negotiating, away from the table. And that's, I think, the direction
it's the negotiating that he wasn't capable of doing.
Correct. Yeah. He's covering for himself with bombs. He's bombing his way out of it.
But to be clear, bombing that one facility does not end the Iranian nuclear.
No, it just sets it back.
If anything, it sets it back. It does set it back. It adds fuel to the fire. Like, they're more inclined to do it.
Well,
I think he's trying to bomb back to the table. I think that's really. I really believe that Trump's perspective in the end is going to be, I think that I can push them around, and I'm going to show them.
I'm not an Iranian expert. I do follow some folks online that are. You are not going to bomb them into.
I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm saying that's what I think Trump thinks.
Oh, he
I think,
absolutely thinks he can. It's the same thing he thinks in everything.
It
They just
controls the
let you do it.
narrative, so.
They just let you do it.
exactly.
I want to go back to like, can this be a win or a loss for, politically for MAGA? Like, it's a win for us that they are having to have this battle, because I don't mean in the short term. I'm not, Iran and Israel. Frankly, the Middle East has been doing what the Middle East does for the last like 3,000 years. And we got sucked in for 20 years. I would prefer we not spend another $8 trillion believing that the strongest military and the blah, 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 like this is a new world. And you look at what Ukraine is doing to the Soviet Union. Sorry, to Russia, but really
Well,
to the former KGB
pretty accurate.
officer, Vladimir Putin. Regular Americans want none of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Whether he can corral that base 25-30% of people around to support, like, yes, they'll do whatever he says, because they always do whatever he says. They loved him after January 6th. But regular Americans, independent swing voters, they are running away from a war in the Middle East faster than they've ever run from anything before. And so, and this is something that I've done a lot of videos about, we've talked about a little bit, but like all of the classical pillars of the Republican Party are completely obliterated now. You've got the hawkish military people, you've got the Bible thumpers, and you've got the fiscal conservatives. Trump has blown up all three of those in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they've all for now paused their care about their values because they believe in the Trump brand. But the Trump brand is over. They just haven't fully grasped that yet. And here in about 6 to 8 months, we're going to be talking about midterm campaigns, and everybody's going to be running without Trump's name on the ballot. And they're all going to be doing the commercials like, I didn't always agree with Donald Trump. And they'll just be like Homer Simpsoning into the political bushes. And everybody knows this is about to happen. And so Trump, I mean, obviously he's going to keep doing what he tries to do to be relevant, but regardless, Vance, he's a protectionist. Like, he wants white people to have white babies in America, and he wants to put up the walls and have the tech CEOs build, AI domes or whatever over the country so that nobody can ever touch white people in America. That's the Vance. Then you got Hegseth, who's still sort of like this like old fashioned guy who just wants to bomb everybody. Like, these are not
With a
compatible.
nice cup of whiskey in his hand.
Right. Right. He's literally the guy holding the whiskey. Like, he's the bad guy in every espionage movie, sitting behind the desk, like drunk and just like committing crimes. So these are not compatible factions without the Trump brand gluing them all together and winning. Yeah. And so as soon as they are forced to win on their own merit, again, they're going to be looking at the wreckage, the policies, the personalities. It's all in disarray, and Trump will be out, and Trump doesn't give a shit. He's not going to taint his brand after he's out of office. He's not going to hitch his legacy to JD Vance. He's already made that clear. So this macro level, this is a huge win. We just need to hold accountability where it belongs and minimize damage in the process.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I do agree that the three factions are losing that you've described, but you mentioned them, but you didn't mention them as a faction, the techno-fascists. Like, the techno-fascists are winning. If we go to war, the techno-fascists win. Like, if we don't go to war, they're still winning. And they can still use all of their
the data they've stolen,
all of the social media that they own, all of the data that they're taking out of the federal government. They Palantir and all these other techno-fascists are now getting lieutenant colonels.
I know that people appreciate the Lord of the Rings shit I've got. The fact that they stole, like, they used the Palantir, which in Lord of the Rings is a fucking orb that allows you to see all the terrible shit that people are doing. And people are still cheering for it, as in the real world, they're using it to see all the shit that you're doing. It fucking boggles my mind. J.R.R. Tolkien is rolling over in his grave right now.
So as of either this week or last week, it was announced that Palantir and a bunch of other techno-fascist types are getting direct commissions, not to lieutenant, but to lieutenant colonel. So they're going to be commanding brigades or battalions. So anyway, so the techno-fascists are basically, they're going to win no matter what. It doesn't matter how much the Bible thumpers or the fiscal conservatives or anybody else is fighting, because the techno-fascists are going to just keep giving them the red meat that they crave online, in their phones, in their media, and that beyond Trump is going to continue unifying them.
I think they'll win in the Republican Party, but I mean, look at Elon Musk's approval rating. Like,
It's trash.
people don't like big tech leaders, and if you
True.
put people like Peter Thiel or Mark Andreessen, you put these guys in front of the average American, like they see Jeff Bezos, they see Mark Zuckerberg, they just see a billionaire weirdo. Like they tend to be very weird people. Like, these are not the leaders that Trump is, and there's a reason why Trump is not a tech CEO. Like, the guy can't open a flip phone. So
His phone doesn't have a fucking flash on the back. I was looking into the specs on his Trump phone. It doesn't have a flash. The RAM is listed twice as both RAM and storage, and it doesn't tell you what processor it is. It's ripped directly off AliExpress and then just painted gold.
right.
All for
Oh my
$499.
And also, if you pre-order it right now, it bills you the wrong amount, like in excess of the whatever the $100 down payment is, and you can't start your service.
Sweet.
Other than that, though,
Sounds like a
it's
Trump
sick
product.
The
phone.
biggest grift ever.
But
Well,
so
that's-
hang on, just to wrap up the point. So, like, Chris, they have money. They have an ungodly amount of money. They're all behind Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. Absolutely nothing to diminish the authority they have within that movement and the power that they have within that movement. But as public facing leaders, if we continue to do what we did with Musk, which is hang our public leaders around the necks of these billionaire creepos behind the desk or behind the curtain, it's work, and it's going to take a lot of effort, but we can continue to keep them tied together. And I don't
Nobody
think that
cheers
the
for a
average
Reddit
person
mod.
is going to be stoked about those people.
Yeah. But until we get Democrats like coming up with the serious plan to make it so that Elon Musk doesn't own critical infrastructure,
Right. Yeah,
which he
right.
does right
Yes.
now. Like
Yes.
he
Yeah.
could literally say, shut it off. And our entire military is more or less like essential parts of our military
Yeah,
are
they're
completely fucked.
Yeah.
So until we get Democrats talking about, I don't know, I'll take it as far as nationalizing his fucking companies. Like they are essential defense infrastructure. We need to nationalize it. That'd be my
Fuck
argument.
you don't get it anymore.
Yeah. We need to
I don't
win,
need Democrats
and
to
then-
go that far, but until we have Democrats talking about seriously making it so that these individual men, like Palantir has huge contracts right now that have are helping ICE. Like
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
we need Democrats to be talking about
Yeah.
ending these contracts, these relationships, or just fucking nationalizing anything that's become too essential.
We just need to win. If we win, then we get to do what needs to be done.
Well, I want to make
do-
a point to
I do
that
wanna hear
because
him talk about it.
the winning element, we have to take a look at why, because Chris is right. The technocrats are winning and the billionaires are definitely in a position of power. Why? They're in a position of power because they uniformly represent one thing, and that's progress. Democrats no longer own that space because we don't present anything that represents as progress. Billionaires are coming to the table going, look at this AI thing I've got. Look at this SpaceX shit. Look at whatever the fuck it is. They're bringing something to the table where people go, wow, look at the cool thing they're bringing to me. Wow, look at the value they bring to me. Look at the immediacy of that value. That is why these people are up in front and winning, regardless of being weird and unlikable people. They're actually providing something to the people at the end of it. So it's not just as simple as like, hey, we got to win and these people go away. They're still going to wield huge amounts of power because what they're bringing to the table is progress in spaces people are interested in, making their lives easier, making their lives more exciting. We need to recognize that and be only then will we be able to actually fight back appropriately, because we just don't give the same value. Like we come to the table with nothing at the moment, and we need to have a contrast. And we
That's
don't
how they're
have one.
winning. That's how they're winning in the business world.
Yeah,
But-
and in political world too, because
but-
they're
but
aligned
Trump's-
with these people, and they're part of government now.
But Trump's actual brand is let's go back to the 50s of America, where we all just like work in the manufacturing plant
Socially,
And
but not in
that-
business.
a
It is
lot-
for the average person, but the
But if you
average
look
person
at-
isn't looking at it like that.
if you look at tariffs and manufacturing jobs, he's talking about a world that was 70 years ago. And
I
I
agree
think
with
that the nostalgia of his movement is not around the future of technology. Like that's how they gained power and that's how they gained money, and they're making it work right now. But there's a innate conflict here. Like a 60-year-old white guy in Pennsylvania is not going to vote for Peter Thiel to be the next president, like because
No.
he's inventing amazing things. We have become incredibly dependent, and I think in that sense, both parties have become far too dependent on big tech and government and
Oh, yeah.
contractors to do everything for us. So like,
I'm looking at it differently.
We have progress there.
I'm looking at it from the other end of the age spectrum, which is the reason why we lost like Gen Z men aggressively, because that is the generation of people who look at this and go, "Ooh, I like these."
Elon Musk is
billionaires."
he can make a car that can drive by itself,
and that's the
He's
problem.
not, Zach is right. Zach is right.
Yeah,
that is the problem, and we don't have a compelling argument by comparison. And unfortunately, Trump has done an exceptional job at embedding those people into him as a personality in his administration.
Well, and I think that's right, but I think that the Democratic vision needs to be a version of capitalism with guardrails, and we do not have guardrails right now. I would love to see that all Democrats come out in favor of basically requiring social media companies to have a algorithm-free chronological feed, because I don't think that tech companies should decide what information you're looking at, because they are, right? They are.
Chucklefuck Musk is fighting it in New York about that hate speech thing, where they because the case is that they have to disclose how they fight against hate speech, and Musk is like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to show how I'm fighting hate speech because he's not
right, because
he's not.
It's amplified.
But I think there is a lane though to be all for innovation and progress, but also making sure that there are guardrails in place that like businesses don't get your proprietary data without consent, and that they can't manipulate you as easily as they can now. Because honestly, like if I go on Twitter right now, I mean, Elon has made that algorithm so that all you're getting on your For You page is extreme right-wing content. Right. And and that's the default, right? So that's what you're seeing when you go onto these sites for the first time. And like Facebook, right? Like you see like the same 5 people, and it's usually the people who are all yelling and screaming at each other. And I just think that there are
people on my personal account. I go absolutely fucking ape shit on people.
That's what makes you so great, Luke. That's why you've got get fucked as your trademark.
It's true.
So anyways, I just think that like we don't have to be against business. I think we just need to be like for a smarter capitalist society.
That's such a hard sell, though.
Well,
like I agree with everything you're saying, but it's such a hard sell to like, hey guys, let's put guardrails on shit. That has almost never been a successful.
Let's not forget though that this is like tech leaders 7 minutes ago were considered the evil socialist left. Like Elon Musk has helped normalize that whole thing, but if you know people who work in California who work in tech, it is 95% leftist liberals. And they're going more left. They're getting, because AI is in a lot of parts of the world, a lot of industries, being careful here, a lot of career lines. AI poses an absolutely horrific, dreadful existential threat. Yeah. And I think regular people see that too, because, blue collar workers have watched their jobs get made obsolete, like we talked about with John Harwood, by technology for 50 years. And so I think there's a unifying thread here where, no, we are not anti-innovation. I freaking love technology. I want to talk about all of this stuff. Yep. I want to have a world in the future where innovation and AI does so much work for us that it creates so much wealth by default that we can actually talk about like what was the Andrew Yang, like the universal basic income. If we use all of the wealth we generate to provide a better quality of life for people like FDR did, like labor unions protected, if we just get back to that argument of we produce amazing things, we do amazing work, we are the best, smartest, go America, and that wealth should stay in our pockets because we are the ones doing the work. That is a progressive argument. It's a winning argument that if we can harness that in this new era of AI and technology, we can absolutely reclaim that whole world. But somebody has to do it. We need a goddamn leader who understands it, which is why we're talking to people like Deja Fox. We need people who live in this and understand it, understand the consequences and the benefits, so that we can make it part of our thing and not just have it be like the evil technocrat billionaires. Like, I want the benevolent technocrat billionaires. I'm just waiting for the Democrats to roll out their AI chatbot tool on their website that helps you donate. I'm waiting for that because I know that fucker's coming.
It's true.
Like, but we looked at your IRS records. You can afford to double your donation. You're like, God damn it.
So I agree with you, Rich, and I think that's compelling. But the reality that we live in is if you can't take that and condense it to a tweet,
If it doesn't fit
Yeah,
in
you're
one
fucked.
sentence,
We're not
you're fucked.
like that. That was a great speech,
Yep.
but it's not a great tweet. And until we figure out a way to,
I can turn that into a 90-second TikTok.
that's why I'm talking about, like, I mean, what I really mean is, like, you know, break up monopolies, but that's why I'm saying fuck it, nationalize all these companies, right? Because we need to have clear messages that are just fucking ridiculously strong that people can gravitate towards.
That's kind of my focus here, and like what I was going to say next is that what we can do here is use marketing to our advantage, because nobody really, like, I mean, not nobody, but the majority of people in this country have no idea what AI does, how it works, what it could do. If Democrats could come out and go, look, what we want to do with AI over the next 10 years to revolutionize your life is this, this, and this. That's a fucking tweet, and that's
Trump's
something they can
AI
run
takes
on.
your fucking job.
Right,
That's the
exactly.
way I market it.
Exactly. If you can sell the benefit, then you can get the guardrails in the back door. But if you lead with like, well, we're trying to be responsible, to be like, shut the fuck up, get out of the way, you're getting in the way of progress. We got to sell the progress first and then backdoor all the guardrails.
I just hide the mess.
And toss in some fear.
Yes.
I mean, what Democrats really need to do, and I'll tell you the winning message, the singular winning message that like straight up radicalizes people, so you have to be careful with it, is reduce it to protect the children. Like if whether it's AI or it's talking about anything in the future, if you just reduce it to protect the kids, that is a winning fucking slogan, and you just got to be able to tie good ideas to it instead of
won't
like
have a job.
conspiracy theories.
Yep. And education too. I mean, I have a 4-year-old, and I always wonder, like, what is AI's role going to be in her education? Because it's not going to be zero. I'll tell you that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, that's
fucking
something a lot of
Duolingo
parents are
fired
worried
a
about.
shitload of their people and brought AI to do it instead.
Yep.
Like, it won't be long before actual schools do that.
Exactly.
Well, guys, we covered a lot of ground today. I think this is a good time to wrap it up. I think in conclusion, ICE is bad. Don't bomb Iran. And Democrats, we just came up with your messaging around AI. So we're all good here. DNC can take a couple of weeks off and deal with all their infighting that's happening right now. But anyways, as always, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate the last episode. We got a lot of really great feedback, and it was just really great to see that. So that's why we're doing a second episode without guests. But I think we might have a guest next week, which I will just mention it here because this is going to go live on Thursday. I think we're going to have Brad Lander on. They just emailed us back about coming on the show. So he's going to tell us all about what it's like to get arrested by ICE or detained.
Is he back from El Salvador?
It was just an email, so I didn't see there was no area code on the text.
Trace the IP.
Yeah, trace the IP, exactly.
Yeah, I'll get on that because I definitely know how to do that. But anyways, so we'll probably be doing that early next week. And also don't forget, we have merchandise for you to show your support.
Where can I buy one of those t-shirts? That's a sick shirt. Where can I buy that?
Well, you can buy that at findoutpodcast.com. And on top of that, all of our merchandise is made in the USA and union made where available. So
by AI bots.
Yeah.
No AI bots.
Union, well-paid union AI bots.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd be super into that. Also, find us on Substack, findoutpodcast.substack.com. You can become a member there, where you get some extra benefits if you kick us a few bucks, and it also just helps support building what we are building all together. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Hope you stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon.